Hello everyone, my name is Jason and I am an ISFP. Thank you so much for watching this video. So I want to start with this video with a little bit of a story. So recently I experienced this interaction between two people who were feeling dominant. I'm feeling dominant. Okay, so what I'm about to talk about is going to focus heavily or apply heavily to ISFPs, INFPs, ESFJs, and ENFJs. But it will apply to really anyone who has feeling overthinking or who favors their feeling over their thinking, but all the more so for those who have feeling at the top and a thinking function fourth. So these two people were interacting. They were both feeling dominant. They were both extroverted feeling dominant, but they wouldn't have to be for what I'm about to talk about. And the female person in this interaction was talking to the gentleman in this interaction. And she was talking about how there was this thing that he needed to be doing, and he needed to be doing it better than he was actually doing it. Now, the problem is he had never really been taught or shown how to properly do it. And she didn't know how to properly do it either. So she didn't know how to do it. And though she should have taken the responsibility to both know how to do it and then teach him how to do it, instead, she just sort of threw him to the wolves to say, you should have figured this out and you should have done it right. But now the fact that you didn't figure it out with practically no help, and the fact that you didn't do it right, now you've left me having to try to figure it out and try to do it. And I'm angry at you and I'm belittling you more or less, or I'm berating you, I'm making you feel, sort of incompetent, sort of inadequate. She was using words that were kind of condescending toward this person, this guy. And she was really saying, why didn't you figure this out and do it? And because if you had, I wouldn't have to. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that when a person who is feeling dominant, extroverted or introverted, is going through life in general, and I'm going to say we because I'm a feeling dominant person, we feeling dominant people have a bad tendency to neglect having a deep understanding of how things work. And also, we tend to neglect actually making things work. This is a real problem for us who are feeling dominant and thinking inferior. Now, what we do is we go through life focusing so heavily on trying to deal with all of the issues of life and get through life and solve all of our problems and, win friends and influence people or whatever it is that we're trying to do. We lean so heavily on the feeling, the valuing, the emotional side of things to some extent, that we do so at the peril and expense and neglect of actually understanding how things work, and then also at the peril of actually making them work. So when someone does something or fails to do something that then forces us to use our thinking function, we often get upset. Now, for the extroverted feeling dominant, that is really understanding how something works, introverted thinking, right? So the extroverted feeling dominant person has introverted thinking as their inferior function. So they might go through life never really taking the time to get a deep understanding of how something works. And therefore, when they're forced to like sit down and train their mind on why does this work the way it does? Or how does it work? They, if they're forced to do that, if they're not doing that of their own free choice, but they're forced to do it, they will frequently become very angry about it. And they'll lash out at those who are, because the other people are not doing it, are forcing it upon them. On the flip side, or on the FI side, the INFP, ISFPs, we're so feeling dominant to the neglect or to the, detriment of extroverted thinking, which is actually making things work. And so when we go through life just sort of ignoring does this actually work? Can I make this work? Do I know how to make this work? Can I create a function flow that is smooth and actually helps everybody? Can I figure out a system that is practical and actually does something of value? So we're neglecting this all the time. And then when something happens that causes us to have to do it, when we're looking at the other people and we're like, you people should be doing this, and then they don't do it because maybe it's not even their responsibility, maybe it's our responsibility all along, then all of a sudden we get mad and we're like, why didn't you figure this out and make this work? What is wrong with you that you didn't make this work? I'm mad. Why? Am I really mad? Like really, if I had to analyze my mind, if I could step out of myself for a while and analyze my mind, am I really mad at you? Like, do I really believe you're incompetent? You are somehow deficient because you didn't make this work? No, I'm really mad because you forced me to use my inferior function. Because you didn't figure out how to make it work, now I have to. And I'm not very good at that. So I don't want to. So I'm going to get mad. I'm not able to solve this problem with my FI, what I usually go to solve this problem. Now what do? Oh my gosh, I have to use my TE. I don't want to use my TE. I'm not good with my TE. I don't like using my TE. So you're the reason I have to use my TE. So you need to be given a harsh lecture. Or for the FE Dom, I have to understand this now. If you understood it, I wouldn't have to. If you would just make this thing work, although that's more of a TE concept, but if you understood how it works so that you could make it work, then I wouldn't have to. Well, the problem is when you have two FE dominant people, neither one of them is particularly adept per se. I mean, they can be. An FE dominant person can be great with their TI if they work on it. But if you have two people who are just going through their life constantly leaning on their FE as a crutch and avoiding their TI at all costs, then when one of them says, I can't figure this out, I don't know how this works, and the other one suddenly has to, then that person, that FE Dom who is now forced to use their TI, it might lash out. And that's what I saw in this interaction. I saw this FE Dom person. It makes no difference that it was a woman and a man. I'm only saying that because it made some sense for telling the story. The gender is irrelevant. What I'm trying to say is here was an FE dominant person who couldn't understand the TI of something. That would be the guy. And the lady in this, same problem. FE dominant couldn't understand the TI. But instead of just saying, oh my gosh, I totally get why you're having trouble with this, with your inferior TI, although neither of these people know anything about personality type or cognitive function, so far as I know. Instead of the woman in this story saying, oh my gosh, I completely get why you FE dominant person were not able to figure this out with your inferior TI. I can't figure it out with my inferior TI either. Maybe we need to consult somebody who knows, or maybe we need to open a book and read the manual on how this program, it was a computer program, how this computer program works. Instead of doing that, she got mad and she was like, you should have taken it upon yourself. This is what she was implying. You should have taken it upon yourself to TI understand this thing so that I don't have to TI understand it. You are making me use my TI and that makes me mad. Now I'm going to lash out at you. But it was wrong of her, because actually in the relationship that they have, it was really her responsibility to understand it and to explain it to him. She just was hoping that he would figure it out on his own, so she didn't have to, she didn't TI have to figure it out on her own. And it's easy for anyone like to point fingers at people who are, basically mad at someone because they have to use their inferior function. But as I'm listening to this interaction take place, everything that I'm saying now is going through my head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the exact same way. I'm not TI inferior, I'm TE inferior. But I'm like, I want everybody else to make everything work. Can you people just make this work? Because if you don't TE make it work, then Lord forbid I might have to. And when I have to TE make it work, I'm going to get angry because I'm being forced to use my TE, which I don't want to use. Here's the better way of looking at it. I'm an FI dominant person, so I naturally want to use my FI to solve all my problems. But if I will just think or just look out into the world, I'll realize that I have to TE. I have to use my extroverted thinking if I'm going to solve a huge chunk of the problems in my world. And so instead of saying, hey, all of you people out there, you need to figure out how to make this work so I don't have to, I need to say, when I encounter things that aren't working, I should see this as an opportunity to exercise my TE. Will I do it as well as an ESTJ or an ENTJ or even like an ISTJ or an INTJ? Will I extroverted thinking make something work as well as someone who has extroverted thinking as one of their top two functions? No, I probably won't. But with practice and effort and acknowledgement that this is difficult for me, I could probably get a lot better at it. Or I can just keep getting mad and being like, you're forcing me to TE figure out how this works or make it work. Why don't you do it? Not my problem. Not a very good way to go through life. And same way for you FE DOMs, you ESFJs and ENFJs. If you go through life being like, I don't understand this, can't you just understand it for me? If everybody else understood it, I wouldn't have to understand it. Can't I just make friends and have relationships and focus on, unity and solidarity and everyone understanding one another because you're good at that with your FE. You're good at understanding other people to an extent and in certain ways. But you're not always good at understanding the depth, direction of how some complicated system works, like a computer system or an app or a machine or whatever else. But you're able to be, you can, you just have to decide that you want to. You have to decide that you're not going to allow yourself to always get mad at everyone else when they force you to use your TI. Whenever other people don't understand something, instead of you just being like, hey, you just need to go figure that out, you need to say, look, this is an opportunity for me to sharpen my TI skills. I need to dig into this thing and try to understand it. Will you ever be as good at TI as the INTPs and the ISTPs? No, you probably won't. But that doesn't mean you can't get significantly better than you are. Or you can just keep getting mad at everybody every time you have to use your TI and figure out something that's complicated. And you can go, dang you, why didn't you figure it out and understand it so I didn't have to? I think this concept would apply across the board to whatever your first function and your fourth function are. I think you're always going to love to default and try to figure out how to solve your issues with your first function or your second, or even your third, honestly. You're pretty well okay. You're somewhere in the ballpark of, okay, I can do it if I have to yay, I get to do it with your top three functions. When you get hit in that fourth function, especially, Now, one of your two middle functions, you probably also get a little bit out of shape when you have to use, but when you have to use that fourth function, that's when you're really going to lash out at people. You're going to get angry because you don't want to have to use it. You want everybody else to do that. You want to outsource that to everyone else, let them all do it so you don't have to. And when they won't do it and you have to do it, you're going to get mad. So if you find yourself getting mad, by the way, about anything, when you find yourself getting mad, you ought to ask yourself the question, is my anger in any way in this situation being born out of the fact that I'm being forced to use a function that I do not favor? And if the answer is yes, and I think you'll be shocked how many times, if you're really honest with yourself, how many times it is yes. If the answer is yes, what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to keep getting mad and outsourcing your inferior function to everyone else and getting ticked off when they don't do it for you? Or are you going to grow? Are you going to learn? Are you going to sharpen that sword, that is your inferior function? Are you going to exercise that muscle? Are you going to get better? What I saw in this interaction recently was a person who wants to outsource her TI to anyone and everyone, but Lord forbid she have to use her TI. Don't make her use her TI. Just let her stay in happy FE land and she's okay. Make her use her TI, boom, she's gonna lash out at you. And what I really saw more than that was myself. I saw myself. How many times have I lashed out at people when I had to use my TE? How many times did I go to instant grump mood the moment I had to use my TE? Why do I have to use my TE? If everybody else would just make things work, I wouldn't have to. It's my inferior function. It's born out of an inferior mindset. I need to grow. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate you watching this. Please give it a like if you found it informational, useful, entertaining, whatever. If you like the different background, because I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to use the old traditional background sometimes and this video background sometimes. If you like this, then yay. For those of you who said, oh my gosh, no, it's too distracting. I don't like it. It messes with the lighting. I can't stand it. I'm sorry. This is faster for me to get set up. So sometimes when I'm crunched for time and want to make a video, this is what I'm going to be using. If I use my normal background that I use, my hippie tapestry background, then that probably means I had more time to put my video together. So anyway, either way, I appreciate you watching. I apologize to any of you that the background was distracting too. Please do subscribe if you have not already. I would really appreciate that. And you have an awesome day. Bye now.